be the final rankings we do leading up to the draft. I mean, you look, all 32 NFL teams have kickers. There's really only one team in the market for a kicker, that's Seattle, and there's really only one team in the market for the punter, and that's the Raiders, because they released Marquez King after an incident with Gruden due to personality issues. But let's focus on the safeties today, and we will start with the ultimate chess piece out of Florida State, Derwin James. I think he's clearly the top safety in this class, no doubt, and he's most definitely worthy of the #1 spot. I mean, this guy, he's bigger than both Jamal Adams and Malik Hooker. He's very effective as a safety. I don't think he's as potent as in zone coverage as Adams or Hooker, but he's very good on tape. 84 total tackles, 11 deflections from pass breakups, 4 quarterback hurries. He ran a 4.47 at the combine, did 21 reps in the bench press reps. So he is more of a pure safety than Minkah Fitzpatrick, and he's versatile enough to play anywhere at defensive back. Just like Minkah Fitzpatrick, he can play field, boundary, nickel, strong safety, free safety. Evan Ingram looked out of place versus Derwin James in 2016 before his injury. He has got big hands for a safety. He can play any type of coverage, man, zone, press, and he can play cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. The size and strength is there. He recovered from a torn meniscus in his right knee. His speed and agility is back at 100%. He's got elite quickness. He's got that first step, that acceleration, the makeup speed, sideline to sideline, never beaten over the top. He's too fast to get behind. This guy's not as versatile as Jamal Adams, but he's so fun to watch on tape. He can get by linemen. He's got that start-stop ability, and receivers have trouble getting hands on him. Superb instincts. You're rarely going to catch him biting on the play action. He adjusts to coverage. He has the ball skills you want. He's a natural at fighting for the ball. There are so many traits to like with this guy. 1 missed tackle on tape in 2017. He's very patient. He takes the proper angles. There are so many positive traits with this safety. He reads the quarterback eyes, a lot of discipline, good blitzer. Coaches believe he's the ultimate chess piece. He's too fast off the edge, too strong versus running backs, and you can put this guy pretty much everywhere. You can match him against tight ends, receivers. I really believe he's Florida State's best player since Jalen Ramsey. He's very good at sliding past linemen, and he will take away your ability to run and throw effectively. And he's a sophomore redshirt, but after Eric Berry, Earl Thomas, Jamal Adams, Malik Hooker, those are the top 4 safeties I've evaluated since 2010, and this guy is #5. So that says a lot as far as his strengths go. There's just a lot to like with this guy.
Yes, there is. The big thing I see is his athleticism. Athleticism and size. I think he can cover everywhere, and that's saying something for a safety, because like Hooker last year, he can get where he needs to be. He can recover, make good sound plays, and a lot of safeties, they can only do one thing, and I've seen him cover the run well on the outside. And that brings an added, because he can play in those dual safety defenses where the safeties are interchangeable. So, I mean, that in itself, that makes him extremely valuable.
Yeah.
And I like him as the top safety in this class. I like him to a bigger version of what Hooker was last year. And, you know, Hooker was a guy that was a huge playmaker for Indianapolis this year and may have been the steal of the draft. And he should have gone probably top 5 when you look back, hindsight being 2020. So that is a huge statement for him.
Absolutely, and we look at the opportunities. I've mocked him to Washington at 13, but he could very well go earlier than that. I mean, I've got the Chargers as a fit if Washington passes on him. You also look at the Niners, the Bears, and the Buccaneers. I wouldn't even rule out the Oakland Raiders at 10, because this guy has top 10 talent, but he might fall to 13 simply because there aren't that many teams in the market for a defensive back. I mean, Tampa Bay is realistically the first team that's in the market for a defensive back because they're moving Ali Marpet to left guard. The coach, Dirk Cotter, confirmed it. They signed Ryan Jensen. They're going to have Sweezy at right guard. So if that's their plan, they're not taking Nelson or any offensive lineman at 7. I don't think that's a smart plan for Tampa Bay, but if that's what they have planned for them, that's what they have planned for them. And they're probably either going to go with Minka or Derwin, depending on who's on the board at 7. And I wouldn't be surprised if they took Derwin over Minka, to be honest, Joey, because Derwin might be a better fit for their defense. Even if Minka's the higher graded player, Derwin just might be a better fit for that defense.
Yeah, and that's something that I am usually the one telling people about is that, look at the fit for the defense. And I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, in the end, Minka may be the better player, but it may come down to who fits the defense better. And James may be that player that he'll fit some defenses better than Fitzpatrick will, and where we would think Fitzpatrick would go.
So if Tampa Bay took Derwin over Minka, I'd probably give that an A grade. I wouldn't give it an A+ grade, but I wouldn't give it an A- grade. I'd give it a fair A grade because I'd understand why they took him due to it might be a better fit. That might be the thing.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't really get upset for them for doing something that is a good fit for their team.
Yeah, it's like Minka might be the higher graded player, but Derwin might be the better fit, and that might be why Derwin goes before pick 13 to Washington. He might go in the top 10. It's something to be prepared for. So he is the best safety in the draft. The one threat with him was, would he check out medically after the torn meniscus? He did. He dominated the combine, so I'm not worried about where he stands medically. And I had Minka at a 98 grade, same grade I gave Jalen Ramsey, and Derwin James, I have him at a 96, which is the same grade I gave Malik Hooker and the same grade I gave Earl Thomas. He's the best safety in the class, had 91 tackles as a freshman, and just really does a lot well on tape. We'll get to my next safety. In fact, he was the only safety to get nominated for the Jim Thorpe Award, and that is Deshaun Elliott out of Texas. And he showed the versatility to play both safety spots, 50 solo tackles, 13 assisted tackles, 63 total tackles, 9 pass breakups, 8.5 tackles for a loss, and 6 interceptions. And the thing I love about Deshaun Elliott is he plays like a center fielder when it comes to dropping back in coverage. He can play in any type of coverage, man zone press. He can play cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. His coverage on tape is incredible to the point where some like his coverage better than Derwin James at times. And he has big hands for a safety, 10.5-inch hands. He has the hands to snag interceptions. He's got superb eye-hand coordination. He may not possess the patience Derwin has, but he makes up for that with his hard hitting on tape. Derwin only had 3 career interceptions at Florida State, while Elliott had 6 alone last season at Texas. Elliott jumps like a corner. He made a one-handed deflection intended for Lazard versus Iowa State by leaping in the air. He's a turnover machine. He forced a fumble on a pass intended for Oklahoma tight end Mark Andrews. And he was the finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, along with Minka Fitzpatrick and Josh Jackson. So he was the third guy involved in the Jim Thorpe Award, which you really have to take into consideration. He's got a high football IQ. The weaknesses, I'd say he doesn't have the vision or patience that Derwin has. 4.5 speed, stiff hips. Those are really the only issues. And I could see why those issues have other sites have this guy as a 2nd or 3rd round grade because of those issues. But I think there's too many traits to like when I watch the tape, and that's why I have a late 1st round grade on him. He could go as high as 17 to the Chargers. He could go 19th to the Cowboys if they want a hometown guy. I could see Carolina at 24. They need a free safety. Atlanta at 26 and Pittsburgh at 28. I've seen other draft sites put 2nd and 3rd round grades on him. I know NFL projected him as a backup, NFL.com, but they put no reasoning behind their report. So, and the only concern is Elliott's a 1-year starter. So you could argue he's raw for that season, but if you put him in Pittsburgh behind Morgan Burnett and Sean Davis and develop him, he could thrive in that environment if he fixes some of the things he has on tape, like getting faster and improving the way he moves his hips, because he does have stiff hips. But overall, besides the speed and the stiff hips, I really like a lot of the traits that Deshaun Elliott brings to the table. And I am willing to overlook the speed because he's played on special teams as a freshman. He's done a lot of different things throughout his career.
I like Elliott as a big play guy. I think he needs a little bit of work on the more finer points of the game, but as a guy who can just go out, ball, make plays, and so on and so forth, if you need to improve with your turnovers, that's the guy you want, because he's going to make plays happen. He's going to make big plays happen for your defense. And if that's what you need, that's what you have to take.
And he's a center fielder. I feel like Derwin's more of an ultimate chess piece, but I feel like Elliott's more of a ball-hawking center fielder, if that's the type of safety you want. But I still like Derwin better as a prospect. But let's move on to number 3, my final first-round safety, the 6-foot, 207-pound Ronnie Harrison. He's versatile enough to play strong safety or free safety. And he had 74 total tackles this year, 4 deflections, 3 interceptions. This was a guy we actually had as 1A and 1B with Derwin James at the beginning of the year. And the strengths, he's a great run stuffer. He has the speed you want. And I'm talking about both his foot speed and his makeup speed. He can play man zone or press. He can play in all the coverages. He's a remarkable blitzer who can use his hard hitting to make a big play. He has a quick pedal with his foot speed and remarkable eyes. He punches well, and he knows how to discard blockers. He also has a high football IQ. But even though he can play in any type of coverage, he doesn't always cover consistently. And this is something Charlie Campbell pointed out to me when I watched the tape, when I had a top 10 grade on Harrison very early in the draft process. I went back, watched the Arkansas tape, and I saw the same thing Charlie saw. But he still covers effectively on a majority of plays, which is why he's still a late first-round prospect. And part of this is due to the fact that he takes the wrong angles sometimes. So if he gives up an assignment in coverage, or he gives up a big play, or he misses a tackle on a running play, part of that is due to Ronnie Harrison taking the wrong angle. I've seen him fatigue at times in 2016, but he corrected that. He relies on unleashing hard hits with his shoulder instead of just wrapping up with tackles. So he needs to become more consistent in that area. Even though I got a late first on Ronnie Harrison, he's rawer than the 2 safeties on this list, in my opinion, despite being faster than Deshaun Elliott. And there's a reason why some of the people in Lombardi's draft talk, who shall remain nameless, have a second-round grade on him, because he lacks the patience you want a safety to have, and he can get too impulsive at times, even though his timing on blitzes can be excellent at times as well. So there's just as many weaknesses with Ronnie Harrison as there are strengths, even though there is a lot of upside to the point where you're getting a potential Pro Bowl player. And I do think there is an outside chance he could fall to the second round to a team like Chicago at 39 to pair with Eddie Jackson. So he's a top 40 pick easily, but there is that outside possibility, I think, of Ronnie Harrison potentially dropping to the second round.
With Harrison, that's something that I've said from the beginning. He can cover, but he is extremely inconsistent with covering. He can do all these athletic things, but he is extremely, extremely raw when it comes to, as you said, taking angles and pass coverage. So I think he's going to need to go to a team initially that plays a lot of he plays a lot of strong safety in the box. Big run team. I think in the end, that's where he's going to need to go initially.
I'm going to mock him to the Minnesota Vikings at 30.
Great all-around safety.
I'm going to mock him to the Minnesota Vikings at 30 as a strong safety next to a veteran like Harrison Smith. And I'm guessing that's the best fit for a guy like Ronnie Harrison at this point.
Yeah, because I think he needs that mentor, because remember, Smith wasn't that great in coverage when he came out of school, but he developed extremely quickly. So having somebody that was kind of in your situation that developed extremely quickly, mentoring you, that may be what's best for him.
Yeah. I gave him a 93 grade, but he had 6 deflections in his first season as a backup safety, and he took over for Eddie Jackson in 2016 when Jackson got injured and improved. And if he's shown enough on tape to be a first rounder. The next safety is a guy I have a second round grade on, and this player is actually Lisa's number 2 safety, and that is Justin Reed out of Stanford. And Justin Reed is 6 foot 207. He's smaller than you like him to be, but he may get drafted before his older brother Eric Reed gets signed to a free agent deal. And he frustrated the top 2 quarterbacks in this draft on tape this year in Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen. 52 solo tackles, 49 assisted tackles, 99 total tackles, 6.5 tackles for a loss, 6 deflections from pass breakups, and 5 interceptions. And he showed the versatility to play nickel corner, strong safety, or free safety. He's very effective in both zone and press, and he provides first-round zone coverage. He provides the ability to play cover 2, cover 3, or cover 4, 4-4 speed, excellent ball skills and play recognition. He's got the football IQ, team captain, superb leadership. He knows how to communicate. Scouts like his zone coverage and press more than his older brother, Eric Reed, which says a lot. The weakness is he cannot play man coverage. Whenever he lined up at nickel corner, he would get torched by slot receivers when he was playing man instead of zone. His back pedal could use some work as well, but overall, he's sound in coverage as far as zone and press goes. And if this guy could play man coverage, I'd be in complete agreement with Lisa on this guy being the number 2 safety in the draft, but I think he's going to go in the late second round, but be prepared. If a team likes him more than Elliott or Ronnie Harrison, just be prepared for that outside possibility of him going in the back half of the first round, because unlike the next safety we're going to mention, who I do have a 90 grade on, I think this guy actually does have a legitimate shot to go in the back half of the first round, even though there are some question marks. But overall, way more strengths than weaknesses. I think this guy's got a better floor than Ronnie Harrison. I don't think he's got the ceiling Ronnie has, but I think he's got a better floor. And you could argue he's got a better floor than Deshaun Elliott as well. But I think you're looking at a top 50 pick in this draft with Justin Reed out of Stanford.
Yeah, Reed was one of those guys I found by accident last year. I forget what prospect I was watching, but it was a defensive prospect, and I saw, Reed doing his thing. And, I mean, Reed is one of those guys where you have to look deeper than what you see. It's like, it's not what he does, it's what he can do. And he can do a lot of things. And I found, his coverage does need a little bit of work, but I found that he can cover pretty effectively when called upon in tight situations. Now, I think he may get a little lazy in coverage sometimes, because I think his inclination is, let's go up, let's get that hit, let's go get that tackle, let's go, and like that is his, thought process. But when it comes to overall, where you're saying this guy can cover, I would take him. When you get to the situation where it says, yes, this guy can play the run, yes, he can. Yes, this guy is athletic, yes, he is. All the boxes check down. Can he do it? Yes. Does he do it? Yes. So I can see where Lisa's coming from with being number 2. But I think the 2 through 4 on this list are a lot closer than a lot of people expect, especially with Harrison and Reed. I think those two could potentially switch. I think those two can switch. And I think Reed, if he continues to do well in the next couple weeks, turn some eyes, does well in his meetings, then I think Lisa may be right in that he may end up going, as you said, in the late first. He may be the second safety taken. He may be the third safety taken. I don't think anybody's going to argue that he's not even going to come close to the first safety taken. But
Derwin James is going to be the first safety
third,
taken if we exclude Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, Derwin and Mink are going to be the top two defensive backs picked, most likely. And
well, the thing is, who's picking Minkah and where are they picking him for? Because you have teams that can take him as a corner, you have teams that can take him as a safety.
Yeah.
So that's going to be your question as to, because I think a team's going to take him as a corner more than they are a safety, but that isn't guaranteed. So, I mean, that's going to affect where Reed is taken as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to wait and see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next safety is a guy we covered on the Evolution Network, as well as a player I got a SWAT report for, and we also got a Ryan Romero to do a voiceover for this player. We could play the clip, but knowing that we're pressed on time, we won't play the clip, but we'll mention that you can go to YouTube, check out the Kazir White film session on our Draft Utopia channel, and we'll also mention the Evolution Network on TalkShoe. Joey and I did a hypnosis on Kazir White if you want the full scoop. But this is the bottom line. He's an extremely hard hitter. This guy hits like a WWE wrestler or MMA fighter. He literally lays people out when he hits them. He's capable of playing cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. He's dominant in zone coverage, very active against the run. He's versatile enough to play both strong safety and free safety. The weakness is he doesn't play man or press well. He's strictly going to rely on his zone coverage, and he has trouble wrapping up tackles at times. He needs to correct this. He struggles to win blocks, and he constantly gets bullied by offensive lines. He runs into his own teammates. I'm not sure he has the football IQ to make it, despite having the ceiling of a Pro Bowl safety. He's extremely raw. And you look at some of the teams: Cincinnati 46, Dallas 50, Carolina 55, Atlanta 58, where I think I might have him at Atlanta. I might have him on another team, and then Cleveland at 64. There's a lot of teams in the second round that could use Kazir White. I don't think he's going to fall out of the second round, but he's rawer than most people realize. And there is that outside possibility he drops to the third round. He's a day 2 pick, but he might fall to the third round, even though I've got a second round grade on him. We watched him.
And here's the thing. White is ready to play as a coverage corner, I believe. Or coverage safety. But I think he needs work on, as you said, he needs work on his tackling. I mean, he has the right attitude for it, but he's just not as developed as a tackler at this point. And that is something that he needs to work on. The big thing that I really take away from him is that he has an extremely high ceiling, I feel. I think he's got potential to play both strong safety. I believe he has the potential to play free safety. I believe he has the potential to do far more things in the pros than a lot of other safeties here. I think this is a deep safety class, and that we're already 5 safeties deep, and I think we see all 5 safeties get taken in the top 50 picks. So that really says something about the class, but it also says something about White as a player, because I don't think anybody saw him coming. I don't think, if you weren't really paying attention, you didn't notice him.
Yeah, I think I mocked Justin Reed to Chicago and Cincinnati to Kazir White to Cincinnati. I've had him slotted into Cincinnati at 46 for weeks now, and that has not changed. So Kazir White,
So you do have 5 safeties in your top 50 then?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, that right there, that says something about the safety class, because you don't usually see 5 safeties go in the top 50. And I think all of them have potential to be starters. I think the free safeties all have chances to be starters immediately, stepping into wherever they're drafted and just start right away. So, and that includes Kazir White. So, I mean, it's going to be a very good class, and I'm interested to see where these top 5 guys end up going.
Yeah, definitely. And this is where the drop-off begins from these top 5 to the next players. And number 6, I put Armani Watts. He showed he could be the man without teammate Justin Evans next to him at strong safety. He had 57 solo tackles, 30 assisted, 87 total, 10 tackles for a loss, 5 deflections from pass breakups, 4 interceptions. He had a great Senior Bowl weight despite being undersized at 5'10", 191. He is outstanding in man zone and press. He can play in all the coverage schemes. He's a fantastic run stuffer. He can be quite the effective blitzer. Tremendous football IQ, has the strength to hit hard and execute tackles. So what are the weaknesses? Well, unlike the other 5 safeties, Armani Watts is a pure free safety. He's not a guy who can line up at free safety or strong safety. He's never lined up at strong safety in his 4 years at Texas A&M or his 4 years in high school. That might worry some teams. The other thing, Bryant Brodus, who writes for the Dallas Cowboys, pointed this out. He's a streaky tackler. And I'm not as concerned about this as most NFL scouts are, because he only got beat in coverage once versus UCLA. And he didn't miss a single tackle in his 2017 tape against Josh Rosen. He struggled to keep up with Darius Geist, didn't run at the combine, and he may possess 4.5 speed instead of 4.4 speed. The opportunities, though, the only second-round team I have projected to get Kazir White is Atlanta at 58. And I have him at Atlanta. I'm going to have him at Atlanta in my new mock, but this is the thing. If Atlanta passes on him at 58, he is guaranteed to fall to round 3. And some of the teams, maybe Green Bay takes him and develops him behind HaHa Clinton-Dix for a year because they don't want to re-sign HaHa Clinton-Dix. Maybe Dallas takes him in round 3. Maybe the Chargers or Panthers gets him at 84 or 85. You're talking about a top 85 player, in my opinion, but he's really more of a second to third round pick, because if the Atlanta or Cleveland passes on him at 58 or 64, I don't think Cleveland would consider him. I think they'd consider Kazir White because of his talent and his immense ceiling, but I don't think they would consider Armani Watts this early in the draft. So if Atlanta doesn't take him at 58, I do think he's going to fall to round 3. And I know Bryant Brodus was a lot more critical on him than I was, and he gave him a 4th round grade despite him impressing throughout the process. So you really are looking at a second to third round player, and maybe even a second to 4th round player. So realistically, I probably should have a 3rd round grade on him, but I have a late 2nd round grade on him.
I've always been a fan of Armani Watt. I've liked him for 3 years. You know, when I first laid eyes on him, it was like, okay, this kid's got it. You know, he could be a star. And I still believe he can be a star. As you said, you know, he is what he is. He's a free safety. I mean, he's not going to come up and beat the crap out of somebody. I mean, and I think that hurts him a little bit, because there are a lot of teams that are going with the whole, let's do the dual safety thing, a guy who can play free and strong and go this, that, and the other. But at the same time, as far as a free safety goes, I think he's got 2nd round talent. I think the lack of versatility hurts him, which may drop him a little more. But I think if you get a team and they plug him in at free safety, he may not start right away, but I still think he's got starting potential. I still think that he has a chance to be a star. Will he be? Now, that's another question, because he's going to have to go to a team that says, okay, we know you're just a free safety. We're going to work with that, and we're going to let you do what you do best. And we're going to let you roll to the ball, make some plays, and we're not going to try to force you into all these different runs. Let's get you down in the box. Let's do this with you. Let's do that with you. I think he needs to go to a team where they say, do your thing, kid, and can make us some plays. And if they do that, I think he'll be a star.
Absolutely.
If not, well, then it might be a little bit more of a tough road.
Yeah, I mean, I got some people saying, Chris, why didn't you put Jesse Bates at 6? Well, Armani Watts is a better tackler. Scouts might think he's a streaky tackler, but there is absolutely no question before we get to Jesse Bates that Armani Watts has more strength when he's tackling on tape. There is absolutely no question about that.
It's not as much of the strength of tackling as it is he just doesn't seem like he's the natural dumper. That, you know what I mean, Chris?
Yeah.
The guy who's going to come down and just, it's not that he can't tackle well, it's that I don't see him as the guy that's like, hey, there's a pile, it just needs one more guy to stick my nose in there, just rough somebody up. He doesn't seem like he's that enforcer type. He's not a Jabril Peppers or a Ronnie Harrison or these guys is just gonna stick their nose in there and get dirty with it like that.
Yeah, I like Bates, but Watts is just better as a tackler on tape, and he shows more strength too, even if he's streaky.
And as a free safety, that's really important because if you're on the last line of defense and you can't tackle somebody and you just ride right off of them, guess what? You're going to give up some touchdowns. That's not a good thing.
No, it isn't. Let's get to Jesse Bates, the next safety. Spoiler alert. But, yeah, I did 3 games of tape on him on my YouTube channel. It was my longest film session ever. It was my first 3 games of tape film session. It was also – we also played some of the clips from the Evolution Network with Joey's analysis in the Jesse Bates film session. And we even linked the Evolution Network episode where Joey breaks down Jesse Bates with myself on this was a guy John recommended, and it's like a week after John told us about him, they mentioned him on NFL Network. Jeremiah did, and they think he's a first or second round pick. I think he's a 3rd round prospect because he's great in coverage. He might be the best cover safety outside of Minka and Derwin James. He's got a great football IQ, great tackler. He's a communicator. He can be a tackling machine. He had 100 total tackles as a freshman redshirt. But the weakness is he looks smaller than his 6'1", 200-pound frame. He's not physical enough. Yes, he moves his hips well, but he gets too lanky at times. And despite having sound coverage, he has a tendency to miss tackles. He got stiff-armed by Christian Kirk. He just looks like someone who has 4.5 speed instead of 4.4 speed. He ran a 4.50 at the combine. He's going to struggle against bigger and faster receiving tight ends in the NFL. Guys like Gronkowski and Kels will have a field day against Jesse Bates III, and they'll make it look effortless, even though he's great in coverage until he works on getting better and getting stronger and being able to tackle more effectively. Guys like Gronkowski and Kels are going to have a field day against this guy if they get any separation whatsoever. So, I mean, there are some teams in round 3 like the Packers, the Chiefs, the Falcons, the Patriots, the Seahawks, where if you put him in for a year and to develop and work on his strength, I think he could be a great safety. But he is not this 1st to 2nd round prospect that the media is hyping him up to be. Joey and myself went way more in depth on this guy than most people in the media had. And from what I've seen on tape with Jesse Bates, he's a 3rd to 4th round prospect when all's said and done.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to really look at is that he's got some potential. I think he's going to be suited as more of a 3rd down back, but at the same time, he'll be one of those guys. He's going to make some plays, and I think that's what's important for a 3rd down back. You need guys that are going to make plays. And I think he's got a great skill set for that. To change up the pace, make some plays, get a few first downs, and make teams think. Like, especially teams that have players that are of a different skill set, because I think he's got a good all-around skill set. So I do think he can develop into an every down back, but I think right now, starting out, he's a third down back and a good one.
Yep, absolutely. And if you want to watch Jesse Bates, we got that on the YouTube channel. Make sure to check out Joey and I's full thoughts on the Evolution Network over at TalkShoe. I got an 86.
Wait a second here. What am I?
We did an Evolution Network film session on Jesse Bates.
Yeah, it's like I'm thinking of Bates, the running back. For some reason, my brain just completely died on me here. Bates, the safety.
Yeah, he's the Wake Forest safety.
I think Bates the safety. Thankfully, it's pretty much the same analysis. I don't think he's a starter right away. I think he can develop into one, but I think that he's got potential to be a starter. I don't see star potential or superstar potential in him, but I think he can be a serviceable starter, and I think he can be a good third down safety starting out.
Yeah, anything below a 90 grade for me is not a Pro Bowl safety, but anything at 85 or above is a serviceable starter down the road. And my biggest concern when it comes to the threats with Jesse Bates is if he goes to a team that he drafts him, expects him to start right away, it's going to be a disaster. Like if a team like the Chargers takes him and puts him in the starting lineup right off the bat, it's going to be a disaster. If he gets to develop for a year, well, and he goes to a team like Pittsburgh or New England or even Tennessee or even Jacksonville in round 3, then I think he's going to be a home run type pick. That's sort of what I'm looking at. Even Cleveland would be good if he sat behind Randall.
Well, Cleveland is an interesting one because they do have Peppers who they're going to move to strong safety. They do have some good young talent, but what they're going to do with it, I'm not sure. They may go to a dual safety type defense because Peppers did spend a year at free safety, where their safeties play both free and strong. We don't really know how that's going to work out at the moment, but so that would be an interesting fit. It'd be pretty telling of what they're going to do with their defense, but I don't think that it's going to. I don't think he starts right away either way. I think this is where the drop-offs of the safeties start. And while he's got potential to start, I don't think that he is going to end up starting within the next 2 years.
I agree.
So, yeah. And no, Bates is not the running back that I originally did analysis on for some stupid reason. He is the safety.
Yep. And number 8 is another safety out of Pittsburgh, Jordan Whitehead. And this guy, 5'11", 190. He can play nickel corner, strong safety, free safety. He's extremely versatile. I have him going the late part of the 3rd round, but I have him going 97 to Arizona. So when I told Lisa I had him going 97 to Arizona, she replied, well, if you have him going 97 to Arizona in the compensation part of the third round, just put a 4th round grade on him. You're probably in agreement with her on that argument, but let's get to the strengths and weaknesses with Whitehead first. He could play man, zone, press, cover 1, cover 2. He can play any type of coverage, and he can be a force to the line of scrimmage, perhaps even a bigger force than Derwin James at times. He's terrific against the run, but the thing is, his weakness is he struggles when teams use play action against him. He also has a tendency to take bad angles. See the Virginia Tech game? He missed a tackle on Cam Phillips. Despite having a great football IQ, one thing he doesn't show enough are the instincts that you want a safety to have. Even though I mocked him to Arizona at 97, if Arizona passes on him at 97, the next team that would be eligible to pick him is maybe Tampa Bay at 102. That's a 4th round pick. Washington's a round 4 pick. Cincinnati at 112 is a round 4 pick. And Seattle at 120 is a round 4 pick. So even though I have a 3rd round grade on him, I have him going 97, which is a compensation pick in round 3. So by those standards, by Lisa and Joey's standards, that is a 4th round grade. So he may fall to the 4th round if Arizona passes on him. And the threats are he had a DUI back in the summer. He missed the first 3 games. He didn't run his 40 until Pittsburgh's pro day. So scouts might have questions about his work ethic and passion for the game, even though they shouldn't. But there's 2 ends of the spectrum with Jordan Whitehead. There's people in the draft community like Jonah Tolles who think he can be better in coverage than Derwin James at times. And then there's people in the draft community like Lance Ireland of NFL.com who think he has no business being drafted before round 5. So you have 2 ends of the Jordan Whitehead spectrum here. And I'm curious if you're in between, you see both ends of the spectrum, or if you're leaning more towards one end of the spectrum or the other. Go ahead.
Well, I like him, but at the same time, I've got to say, I'm kind of in the middle of that spectrum that you gave me. I'm not a big fan of a lot of things that I've heard about. I haven't seen a lot of, but I've heard about when it comes to his decision making. I mean, I think it's worse than what they're making Baker Mayfield out to be. But at the same time, he doesn't make a lot of bad decisions. But when he does, it's kind of at the far end of the spectrum. It's like if you're going to screw up, you're going to screw up all the way type deal. So that worries me. His skills, I think he's got a great skill set. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. I think out of the second tier of safeties, he's got the best chance of succeeding. But at the same time, I do have to think about if you have the all or nothing mentality both on the field and off the field, what's that going to do for... It's a very risk-reward, I guess you could say. And do you want to take that risk?
Absolutely. It is a risk-reward type pick. I've got an 85 potential grade on him, but he's rawer than most people realize. The next safety on my list is a guy I probably have a little too high, but he's a player I really like on tape, and that's Troy Apke out of Penn State. Yep, I have him ahead of his teammate Marcus Allen, despite the fact that he's a one-year starter. And this guy finally became a starting safety, but his coverage is better than Marcus Allen's. He can play man, zone, press. He can play pretty much everywhere in coverage, cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. MVP of the NFLPA Bowl, ran the fastest 40 time for a safety at the Combine, 4.35. He's a punt returner in high school, and he also played wide receiver in high school. And with his speed, he could play on special teams and work his way in the lineup. The weakness is he needs a lot of space. He struggles with coverage in the red zone, especially near the goal line, and he has trouble with wrapping up tackles. I have a 4th round grade on him. I have him going anywhere between 102 to Tampa Bay and anywhere to 120 where Seattle's picking. He's a top 120 talent, in my opinion. He might be a top 60 talent if he had more than 1 year of experience and did better with wrapping up tackles. But he's a one-year starter. There is a boomer bust factor with this guy, but I do have a 4th round grade on him. And I would take him as early as the 4th round, but there is an outside chance he falls to round 6 or 7. But I do really like his tape. I'm guessing you're not as impressed with him as you are his teammate Marcus Allen, who didn't even make my rankings but got the most votes for the guy who didn't make my top 15. All right, let's move on to the next guy. Number 10, final projected starter on these rankings, Dane Cruikshank. He can play nickel, strong safety, free safety. He's probably the most versatile safety, not named Minka or Derwin. He can play anywhere in these coverage schemes, 4.4 speed, incredible strength, 25 reps in the bench press. He has a lot of self-confidence. He referred to himself as the ultimate chess piece. I really didn't see any weaknesses on tape, but he looked like he could line up everywhere in the secondary. He might even move up the boards. I could see him jumping both Apke and I don't think he jumps Jesse Bates, but I could see him jumping both Apke and Jordan Whitehead because I really do like a lot of the things he does on tape. I've got Washington, Oakland, Cincinnati, Dallas, and 135, the Rams. I see a fourth-round talent. The only question is where does he get picked in the fourth round? The threat, he has 9 pass interference penalties in 2016. He cut back on that in 2017. It's still a threat, even though it's more of a minor concern than a major threat. But if he can cut down on those penalties and just step up to the plate and execute, Dane Cruikshank could be a really good value pick on day 3. I'm guessing you like him more than Apke, but you still have some questions with him.
Are you talking to me or Joey?
Joey.
Ryan, I'm letting you talk because you have been here. So go ahead, man. Oh no, I was just enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, we were talking Dane Cruikshank out of Arizona, the number 10 safety on my rankings. We mentioned Troy Apke, the Penn State safety that came in at 9.
So first off, I'm going to say that it's absolutely terrible because knows how I feel about every single safety ranking. I even recently came up with my own top 20 list, in which case my grammar was so terrible I let people slide. Or maybe it was those wonderful Colorado men slide. But either way, Marcus Allen is the top 3 safety in this draft, if not a top 4 safety, which is why I find these safety rankings absolutely ridiculous. Even though his coverage may not necessarily be the greatest, it's also because he makes it show him last in the game plan, which made him look off at times.
But teams like safeties that can cover, and we'll get to some of the safeties that didn't make the cut at the end here. But Troy Apke impressed me more on tape than Marcus Allen did, so I had him higher for that reason. But let's get to the first backup.
Marcus Allen impressed me on tape more. I mean, it's all personal.
Apke impressed me more because he covered more. He ran faster. He's just a better player, in my opinion. He takes up more space when he covers. So I like Apke a lot more. Not slightly more. I like him a lot more. But let's get to number 11, Terrell Edmonds out of Virginia Tech. This is a guy who has the athleticism of a 2nd or 3rd round pick, but he has the production of a 7th round pick, which is why I have a 5th round grade on him. I'm not going to be positive and give guys breaks for not having the tape and the production on the tape. I'm a lot more critical than you are with safeties, Ryan. And Terrell Edmonds is a guy who can play man zone press. He can play in any type of coverage scheme. He's a hard hitter, elite jumping, 41-inch vertical, 4.4 speed. His weakness is he misses a lot of tackles. He takes a lot of bag angles, and I think he lacks the vision to be a 3-down safety. But I've got a 5th round grade on Terrell Edmonds. I think he can be a very good backup. I do like him as a safety, but how is he going to check out medically? That was the big question. He checked out great at the combine, but I do think Terrell Edmonds can be a very good backup somewhere. He definitely has the athleticism and range you want.
I think, you know what, I think he's going to be a good safety. I have like a round 2 grade on him. I think what it comes down to with his case is if he gets put in the right system, he's definitely going to succeed because he has the right different types of skill traits. Like I think he has like a lot of speed, and I think he's impressive. To me, I think he's going to be an athletic type playmaker. He may not get a lot of interceptions, but I think he's going to be able to knock the ball out of the receiver's hands quite often.
Because he looked like a 2nd rounder versus West Virginia's tape. I saw that tape, but that was really the only game of tape they showed all year. And then he sort of fizzled after that opening game. But he impressed in that opening game for sure. You have anything you'd like to add with Edmonds before we get to the next safety at number 12, Joey?
No.
All right.
Let you and Ryan play with your safeties.
All right. Number 12, Quinn Blanding out of Virginia. This is a guy that he can get over 100 tackles on tape. He's a tackling machine. His stats were great, but he needed help with a lot of tackles this year. He can play zone coverage, but his man coverage and press took a huge step back this year. He lacks the physical ability to be an effective tackler, and he needed help from teammates. He has 4.6 speed as well. That's why I've got a 5th-round grade on him. You want to say Quinn Blanding's a 2nd or 3rd rounder, it's like he has 4.6 speed, and to give certain players who don't have that speed necessarily breaks, and then other guys breaks, I feel like that's a double standard to a degree, and I don't see any threats, but I don't see any upside with Blanding either. I see a 5th-round safety that could drop to round 6 or 7.
Okay, I will comment on Blanding because he's a guy I like. The big problem with Blanding, he lacks athleticism. That is the big knock on Blanding. He does everything well on tape. He just doesn't have the athleticism, which means he's not going to have the upside as somebody who is more athletic. And while it sucks because it's not because he did anything wrong, but at the same time, just because you don't do anything wrong doesn't mean that you have the athleticism to be that big superstar player. I think he'll be a good role player in the NFL, and I think he'll produce extremely well on special teams.
I agree entirely, Joey. And the thing that sucks is this guy has 1st-round production and 1st-round statistics, as well as 1st-round tape at times. But he has 7th-round athleticism, so he's pretty much a day 3 pick no matter what he does.
Yeah, and that's the big problem for him is that athleticism.
Yeah. Ryan, how do you feel about Blanding before we get to the next safety?
What was his name again?
Quinn Blanding out of Virginia.
Oh, okay. Sorry, sometimes it sounds a little muffled on your end at times. I like Virginia as a program. I think he's going to be a good player. I'll put a round 3 grade on him. To be honest, Chris, I actually like a lot of the safeties in this class more than a lot of the safeties I did in last year's class, to be honest with you.
I dislike a lot of the safeties in this class compared to last year's class.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I think it's funny that we have that different opinion, especially because I feel like after ranking, I want to say like between 3 and 7, that's kind of like when our list really started to change and work a little bit.
Yeah, it's like we had the exact same top 3 until you flip-flop Marcus Allen with Ronnie Harrison, but we'll get to the safeties that didn't make the cut afterwards.
To be honest, Chris, I mean, to give you credit, I mean, that's a very, very good and very close argument in my opinion. I mean, I love Ronnie Harrison to death. I'm very high ranked on him, but just there's something about Marcus Allen I just like to stare a bit more. So I guess it's got instinct, and maybe that's something you shouldn't trust. But hey, it is what it is. But either way, I do like the safety rankings for the most part.
Yep, and the next 2 safeties are guys from Northwestern. We've got Godwin Igwebuike and Kyle Cuero. And Godwin Igwebuike has the athleticism. He was a team captain. The leadership and communication is there. The problem is he doesn't cover effectively. Despite having the speed and athleticism, he takes bad angles. He's going to have trouble wrapping up tangles. And he looks like a backup strong safety, but he does have some talent on tape. And then Kyle Cuero is probably better in coverage, in my opinion. But he ran a 4.71 at Northwestern's Pro Day, and he didn't work out at the Combine. So he might go undrafted. Even though I've got a 6th-round grade on him and really love his tape, he might go undrafted. Not working out at the Combine, running a 4.71 40 time for a safety, which was worse than what Blanding did. That has undrafted grade written on Joey's board and probably on your board as well, Ryan. So,
oh, absolutely. It can hurt your stock, definitely.
So even though I've got a 6th on Cuero, he might go undrafted. I'm telling you that. You got any thoughts on these Northwestern safeties, guys?
Hey, honestly, I like Northwestern though in general. I mean, I feel like they produce a lot of solid players. It kind of comes down to, I feel like if their recruiting was a little bit better and they were able to get those couple of upgrades at certain positions when they go in recruiting mode, I feel like Northwestern would be a lot more relevant than what they are. They'd be like a TCU in my opinion.
Yes, and the final safety on my rankings is Damone Webb out of Ohio State. This is a guy that I couldn't decide. Like, I had Damone Webb, and then initially, before I made this list, I forgot to add Dane Cruikshank to the write-ups. So I had Damone Webb at 14, and then I posted that poll because I didn't have Dane on the safety rankings. But then I added Dane, and I had to take all the safeties I put in the poll. I couldn't take any of the safeties from the poll I did and put them in the rankings, but I put Damone Webb in this final spot. He's 5'10", 184. He did well at the East-West Shrine game, and he had very good tape versus Baker Mayfield versus Penn State, limiting Deshaun Hamilton. He's got the coverage you want. He can play both safety roles, but he's only 5'10", 184, and he ran a 4.62 at the Combine. So he's going to be a day 3 pick. I think I've got a 7th-round grade on him, but after the top 10 safeties on my board, I think there's a huge drop-off between those guys and the 2 ACC safeties, and then you've got the Northwestern safeties, and then you've got Damone Webb to wrap out my top 15. But I don't think there's a threat with Damone Webb, but I think he's going to be fighting for a roster spot as a backup safety somewhere. But I do like what I see with him.
My thing is, same here. I like what I see on tape, but it's going to be a battle for him to be able to get on the whole roster. Honestly, I think he's going to be one of those guys that ends up getting forgotten unless there's some coaches out there that are like us, where they're like, hey, we got to give this kid a chance. There's something about him where you take the time to develop him, he's going to become a solid safety. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we did post a poll question. We have 26 safeties on the NFL draft game. We only broke down 15 in depth, and we did a poll to see which guys got the most votes. Marcus Allen slaughtered this competition with 15 votes, most of any safety on the list that didn't make my top 15. You guys want to mention Marcus Allen really quickly? I know Ryan did, and I know Joey's got a special on him on the Evolution Network. The other safeties that got 2 votes were Saron Neal came in second with 3 votes. The Jacksonville State cornerback / safety. Foyesade Olukun out of Yale came in third with 2 votes. And then we had Sean Chandler Temple getting 1 vote. Van Smith out of Clemson getting 1 vote. Jeremy Reeves out of South Alabama getting 1 vote. Hootie Jones out of Alabama getting 1 vote. And Cole Reyes out of North Dakota getting 1 vote with.
Hootie Jones is my big one because I did like Hootie Jones. I think, to me, I feel like Hootie Jones is about the same type of player as Ronnie Harrison. I think that ultimately, I feel like Alabama is so stacked when it comes to certain types of positions, when it comes to football, that you're going to overlook a lot of great talent. So I feel like if a team's sitting there in the 5th to 7th round, maybe 4th to 7th round, and they're like, hey, we don't like a lot of these other safeties because of the schools that they're coming from, because they don't trust the program necessarily. I feel as though that someone should really take a chance on Hootie Jones, knowing that they're basically going to get a Ronnie Harrison late round. I mean, that's kind of what it means to me.
I like Hootie Jones too, but the problem is he didn't work out at the Senior Bowl, didn't work out at the Combine, didn't really even get much exposure at Alabama's Pro Day, which is on the SEC Network every year. So that lack of exposure really does hurt him, and I think he's going to go undrafted. He was basically the number 3 safety on Alabama's depth chart behind Minka and Ronnie Harrison, and that limited reps, that really hurts him more than anything else. So I like him.
Really, because he wasn't invited to Senior Bowl. I think he got a low all-star nod, like East-West Shrine game, or maybe in the NFLPA Bowl. So he was able to work out there for the scouts. And also they could invite to the Combine. So his best shot was that senior day. And while the cameras may not get on him for his reps, the scouts were still looking at him. Because it's quite possible they were still in multiple reps at multiple states at a time. The pro day workout, or the cameras could have been, or the on TV, it could have been a commercial when he was doing when Tony Jones was doing his reps.
Yeah, and he was recovering from a knee injury before the pro day too, which is another thing to consider with Hootie Jones. But there were 3 safeties that did not get a single vote. Asante Brown, Western Michigan, Dominic Sanders, Georgia, and Trey Matthews, the Auburn safety Mark told me about. None of those safeties got a single vote, which Ryan is going to say is a shame, but it is what it is. Those guys were better on tape in 2016 than they were in 2017, and I think that's part of the reason why they didn't get any votes.
Here's my question. Did Kerm or Joey see my top safety list or not?
I don't think they did. If you want to go through some of the players really quickly, like your top 5.
Now, once you guys get done discussing what it is you guys need to discuss, I would very much so like Chris to read off my list just to Joey and Kerm, and I want to see what they think about my list versus Chris.
Okay, your top 4 was Derwin Elliott. You had Marcus Allen at 3, and then you had Justin Reed you had Ronnie Harrison at 4, and then was it Justin Reed at 5? Because I swear you listed Allen twice on your safety list, and then you listed Dominic Sanders twice. So
no, it was Whitehead twice.
I think you listed Allen twice. I'm pretty certain. You listed Allen twice. You listed Sanders twice. You listed Whitehead twice. I can't even keep track. I'll try to find it, Ryan.
When you start to do these rankings, you start to do a lot of copying and pasting and switching people around, and then eventually you get a headache, and you're just like, damn.
All right, let me go through the archive of your.
With the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it was like Charlie Lee, that there was a big web on the television screen trying to explain stuff.
Okay, yeah, you had White
on television. I'm familiar with is Charlie Sheen, and that's because I dress like him part of the time.
Yeah, you got Jordan Whitehead at 5, Kazir White at 6. You got Armani Watts at 7, Jesse Bates at 8, Dominic Sanders at 9, and Atrell Jamerson at 10 out of Wisconsin. So I don't know who Tyree Robinson is. I'm not even sure he's draft eligible. Van Smith out of Clemson. I know who he is. You listed Dominic Sanders twice. Godwin Igwebuike, Trey Matthews, Auburn, Trey Flowers, Oklahoma State, Jamar Summers, corner. He's more of a cornerback than a safety, but I guess we'll count that. And Stephen Parker. I've never even heard of Stephen Parker. So our rankings are very different. And I know Mark did 16 safeties. Ryan did 20. I am not as high on the safeties as Ryan is. And I know there are some people that love these safeties for depth, but I look for guys that are mainly starters, and I'm a lot more critical with what I see on tape than Ryan is.
Hey.
It's true, though. I'm a lot more critical.
The big one on there that is Allen, and while I like Allen, I'm not prepared to put him in that top 3 conversation or top 4 because
I'm about to start a hashtag Marcus Allen.
Well,
why not Joey?
Well,
you don't even have Justin Reed, my number 4 safety, on your rankings, who Lisa had as number 2 safety.
Well, mainly because Allen isn't much of a pass defender. He is a pure strong safety. Period. He needs a lot of work in pass, and his pass, and I don't even think he's at this point. I think he might be barely passable against the pass in the NFL. Barely passable against the run. He's excellent. If you're just creating as a traditional safety view of it, it's like, hell, he'd be a first-round pick because he'd be put in strong safety, he'd be put in the box, and he'd just tell people to go in that Troy Polamalu mold and just put your head in there and hit.
Well, that's not him doing.
But Well,
Ryan values the hard-hitting safeties more than the coverage safeties.
All safeties have to be able to cover to some extent. And I don't see him as a player who can cover to the extent needed.
Let me impose this question then. If the draft isn't about, hey, we like this player because he has these great qualities and we know that we can coach these qualities, isn't that what it's about? Is no player is necessarily perfect outside the top 15, really. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not about can we coach these qualities, it's about value. And the value is like, okay, I can coach these qualities, I can coach up these qualities, but he's got major deficiencies here, which could drop his stock.
Okay,
and with that stock drop, can I get him at a later time? When you put him top 3, I'm thinking mid to late first round pick. Is any other team going to take him mid to late first round? Like, okay, he's number 3 on my safety ranking. Can I get him in round 2? Yeah.
And it's not just Joey and I who are critical about his coverage.
Potentially, where do I draft in round 3? If he's going to be there in round 3, I'm going to take him in round 3, but I don't think he's going to be there in round 4. I can get him in round 3, and if I've got a first round grade on him, hey, I feel I got a steal. But what can you do with that? Because I don't think that that's what the draft is. It's a game of chess. You're playing a game of chess against these other people, and you've got to make the right moves to get the players you want.
Yeah, Marcus Allen might have first-round hard-hitting and first-round run stuffing, but he has 7th-round coverage. And even Jonah Tolles pointed out how Marcus Allen's coverage is 6th to 7th round value. DraftBlaster.com gave him a 5th to 7th round grade. NFL.com's Lance Ireland, 5th to 7th round grade.
It's like, I'll say it now, Ryan. I do like Allen. Like, I was pounding the desk for Allen earlier.
Yeah, Joey did a special on him before doing a special on Saquon Barkley. Me and TJ were really critical for Joey on that. But, yeah.
But, at the same time, if I'm the general manager of a team, I'm looking at the draft value. Would I like to have Allen on my team? Absolutely. But as for value, I'm looking at him and I'm saying, look, he doesn't have the value to be a first rounder. He may have the value to be a second rounder, but that's borderline. He definitely has the value as a third rounder. Does he have the? But are other teams going to see him as a third rounder? Some teams aren't. Do other teams need something that's before a
first round to make them be like a punt returner or something specific, where like when you have drafted safety in the first or second round, specifically like Marcus Allen will be, hey, we want a box guy that's going to be able to clog that run because we play in a division that has a lot of run.
Well, yeah, that's where the team fit comes in. The big thing that I'm looking at here is I look back to the Raiders. They desperately needed a punter. Nobody was really paying attention to him. They took Steven and Jankowski in the first round. That was unheard of. You don't take punters in the first round. So what do I get from it is like, are you going to take Allen to be a headhunter on special teams? For those of you who may not know, a headhunter is the guy on punt return teams that are on the outside, or on punt teams that are on the outside, and they are specifically, they have one target: hit the punt return. Follow that punt returner up and hit it. Are you going to draft somebody to start his NFL career in the first round as a headhunter on special teams? I mean, I think that would be the question there.
But he would also be a very great run stuffer. For example, if I played in a division with, say, I don't know, the Jaguars with the Titans, or even the Chargers with the Chiefs.
But he'd start out as a depth guy, Ryan, and you don't draft depth guys in the first round.
But my question is, are you going to take a two-down safety in round 1?
No.
Because what you're describing is
that you can sit there and make sure that you calculate and cold-blooded that they can stop you from coming in. Whereas if you get a guy that can maybe do both, but he succeeds more in passing coverage, but in run division, you might get screwed on the long run for the game of inches.
Well, the thing is, Ryan, coverage is king because the NFL is a pass-first league now.
Well, that's the thing. That is, and I can respect that because I am, as Chris will attest, very old school. I don't see. I mean, he'll look at analytics and as an integral part of everything, and I'll look at analytics as a indicator more than anything. I'm much more old school, and in that term, yeah, I can say yes. It's like I love that way of thinking. That's one of the things that draws me to Allen is that it is a game of inches. But if I look at it from a realistic standpoint, the game isn't, I mean, it's slowly turning back to the running game, but it's a very slow turn at this point. Right now, it is still a passing game. Are you willing to take a guy and make his first contract, basically say, we're going to develop you, we're going to use you situationally while the league turns, or the league continues to turn over? I mean, right now there may be one division in the NFL with the Jaguars, as you said, and those guys who really need that thumper. So that's 4 teams. So, I mean, you're always going to need somebody like that, but as important a piece as it was, which is, Brian, what you're saying, there's only one division that really needs it because there's only one division that really has 4 very good running backs in it. And that right now it's only 3, but we think there's going to be another one at some point here after this draft. And so are you willing to say, other than that division, that's 4 teams out of 32? Other than that, are you willing to say, I'm willing to wait 4 or 5 years until more running backs come in and the league continues to shift back to the power running game and develop this guy? Because that's basically what you're doing. You're gearing up for the future. But with it being still a few years away from that really making a turning point, are you willing to wait and develop? Because right now it's still a passing game. And as long as it's a passing game, you need to cover.
Yep.
So, Ryan, are you willing to wait for that turnover to continue to happen?
Oh, absolutely, because it's not a passing game. I mean, it's a mixture of both, obviously.
Oh, it's not as big a mixture yet. It's still a big-time passing game, but it is turning the corner.
Yeah, and even though Joey's got a 3rd-round grade on him, that is the highest grade anyone has on him in the entire country. CBS has him at 116 on their board. Mel Kiper is a 5th on him. Todd McShay is a 6th on him. Walter Football is a 4th through 6th round grade on Marcus Allen. So Marcus Allen's going to be a day 3 pick. If he gets drafted, he's going to be a day 3 pick.
But you see where I'm coming from, and you really have to weigh the chess pieces, and there are a lot of factors involved. You're going on, well, we just need a thumper, and there's a lot more going on there. And so I get what you're thinking is like, you get what I'm saying on how I'm looking at things at this moment as to why I have them lower.
And I feel as though I feel like you got to have players in specific positions that can just do their job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, but they have to be functional
in
at
coverage.
Everything. And I really don't think he's as functional as a pass protector yet as he needs to be. And that's where the problem is.
That would really be his goal. It would be to stuff the box. Because, I mean, honestly, outside of Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Rodgers, a lot of these guys can't really throw a deep. I mean, imagine when Lamar Jackson gets in the league. He's going to sit there and he's going to be able to run. Same thing with freaking Cam Newton. He's going to run. You're going to want a safety that's going to sit there and really make him think twice about being a full quarterback too.
Yeah,
That's the linebacker cover.
And once there are, I'd say once there are 12 to 15 teams with the ability to, right now I think there are 7, 8 teams with the ability to put fear of running game in there with 120, 140, 150-yard game every week. And I think that number has to grow to about 15 teams before other teams start thinking, oh, we better really start doing something, to make this specific, because if we don't specifically look at this in a way that's going to, make a significant change, we're going to get run on constantly by every single team we play. And that's the way it was back in the, I guess, early days, the Emmitt Smith days, the Barry Sanders days, where Jerome Bettis, where everybody was fearing every game, hey, if we don't stop this, we're going to get hit by 150 every game against the run. And right now we still have teams that are picking up 80 yards a game on the ground. And as long as that's the case, it makes it difficult to justify getting somebody who is not a functional pass protector in the first round. It just makes it difficult to justify.
Yeah, and I'm looking up on Wikipedia the last time a run-stuffing safety that was a pure run stuffer that had no coverage was drafted in the first round, and I'm already at 2007, and I'm not counting LaRon Landry or Michael Griffin. Reggie Nelson's still in the league. I'd say Braden Merriweather was probably the last safety that – Merriweather had great coverage coming out of Miami, but I'd say the last safety that was mainly a pure run stuffer first, pass coverage, get safety second. And he doesn't hit as hard as Merriweather does. He does hit hard. He does do very well stop against the run, but he's not on Merriweather's level in that respect. And I'd say maybe Jason Allen out of Tennessee was the last pure run-stuffing safety drafted in the first round, and he was a bust. So he was drafted 16th by Miami in 2006, and he was really the last pure run-stuffing safety to get picked in the first round. And his career was very brief, so because he couldn't cover.
Yeah, I mean, even Jabril Peppers had enough functional pass coverage ability to be moved to free safety. And that is, that's saying something. Because I had a mid-second on Peppers, and he had very limited ability, but he had enough athleticism and work ethic to get to that point where you could put him at free safety. He didn't do a lot of free safety, but he could be there. So, I mean, it wasn't a lot of skill, but it was a functional skill. And I'm not seeing the functional skill from Allen at this point.
Yeah, and outside of Jason Taylor out of Tennessee, I'm trying to look up another safety that was mainly a pure run stuffer coming out of college. And I think the next best one is Adam Archuleta. He had a solid first few years in the league, but then he didn't really amount to anything. And same with Derek Gibson. He was drafted as a strong safety at 28, and he had a very brief career. So as far as pure run stuffing safety goes, you've had 2 since 2000 drafted in the first round, and they both ended up being busts. So 2 run stuffing safeties drafted in the first round, and both ended up being huge busts. So the numbers do not lie. The analytics do not lie. The data does not lie. Even Antoine Edwards out of Clemson, pure run stuffing safety, busted. But So the numbers do not lie. Marcus Allen is not a first-round safety, and if a team drafts him, they're going to get a bust. I can already tell you because the guys who've been run stuffing safeties.
He's going to be a bust,
if he gets drafted in the first round, he's a bust. If he gets drafted in the first round, he's going to be a bust because the only 3 run stuffing safeties have been drafted in the first round since 2000, and none of them were in the NFL after their 3rd year in the league. So
yeah, here's the thing though, Chris. It's like if he becomes a starter, you know, and a functional starter at any point in his career, he won't be a bust. He won't live up to first round expectation. But he won't be a bust.
Yeah, so but if he gets drafted in the first round, he's a bust. That's what I'm saying. If he gets drafted by a team in the first round, he'll be considered a bust because he won't be considered a player with first round caliber. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, Seattle didn't draft a first round caliber player for years, and none of them were considered busts. You know, it's like they were drafting who was it, Chris Averill or something like that. They drafted in the first round.
That was the Lions.
Into a pretty good pass rusher.
That was the Lions who drafted Averill, and Seattle brought him in as a free agent.
Not Averill. Who was the pass rusher that they drafted in the first round that had like a 4th round grade on him?
Was it Bruce Irvin? Bruce Irvin. He signed with the Raiders.
Yeah, I think that was it. And it was, you know, but you know, so there have been instances of players who, you know, either live up to or don't live up to that weren't busts, you know, or so on and so forth. I know I'm talking about the other end of the spectrum, but I mean, you don't want to just say, oh, he may have lived up to a 2nd round potential, but he was drafted in round 1, he's a bust. Or you don't want to go, now, if it turns out that he's out of the league in 3 years, then, and he was drafted in round 1, it's like, he's a bust. If he turns into a career backup and he's drafted in the first round, he's a bust. But if he ends up being, and they're like, okay, he should have been drafted based on production and what he's done, he should have been drafted in the 2nd round. It's not a bust. It's a reach, but it's not a bust. So,
yeah, and I agree with you, Joey. I think a lot of times people are quick to label busts because they didn't perform up to what they was drafted when all often should be labeled a reach instead of a true-based bust.
Yeah, and I think that's just a common misconception is that people don't really realize the difference between a reach and a bust. A reach is, okay, he was drafted ahead of probably where he should have been. That's a reach. Okay, he was drafted 3 rounds ahead of where he was supposed to have been with a career backup. Okay, that goes to bust category.
Yeah,
great
point on wasteful bust. The kicker, Warren Aguirre, who I think was drafted in the 2nd round, and
by Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that is a bust.
Yeah, he's out of the league. Aguirre is like the best kicker in college football history, statistically speaking. Gets drafted in the 2nd round, comes in, and just completely tanks his entire career. And within 2 years, he's out of the league. So, I mean, that's a bust. Absolutely.
You know, a reach, I think, would be a offensive tackle Andre Smith.
Yeah, Smith.
He had a good career out there, but he's supposed to be the all-pro offensive lineman. Well, he's never developed an all-pro offensive lineman. He's been starting his entire career, and to stay his entire career. Maybe a small reach, but not as much.
Yeah, it's like I don't think anybody expected him to go as high as he did, and I don't think he performed at the level of where he was drafted. especially coming out of Alabama and how overweight he was and how out of shape he was, he has had an excellent career. But to say that he has lived up to his first-round standards, no. It's like he was probably a second round. He probably should have been drafted in the second round, so that was a reach.
Well, when you consider only one offensive tackle, Jason Smith out of Baylor, was drafted ahead of him, he's had a much better career than Jason Smith. The guy drafted out after him was Eugene Monroe. He's out of the league. The next offensive tackle drafted was Michael Orr, who was productive as a rookie but had to retire due to injuries. He's out of the league. And then you had
well, I think with Orr, it's when you have to retire from injury, I think that's a pretty slippery slope, as depending on whether they're a reach or a bust. Orr is definitely a reach, but whether he was a bust, I mean, his career was shortened by injury. I mean, nobody will ever know if he would turn it around because he was just entering what would be the prime of his career. So, I mean, with injuries, that brings up a slippery slope.
Yeah, he said
whether you're
if you go back to college with the player that has retired due to injury, and with Mike Ward's case, I think I would give them in if I had to grade, give them in they end and complete because we didn't get to see a full career body of work out of him.
Well, considering Andre Smith is the only one of the offensive tackles from the 2009 NFL draft that's actually still in the NFL, they do list TJ Lang as an offensive tackle, but we all know he moved to guard when the Packers took him, so I'm not counting him as an offensive tackle. He's more of a guard for me, so considering that he's the only one of the offensive tackles from the 29 NFL draft still playing in the NFL, even if it's as a guard now, that makes him not a reach, in my opinion. And I think while he's not worth a top 6 pick, he's still probably arguably a top 10 player, and he's been the most successful offensive tackle in the draft. So I wouldn't call it a bust or a reach.
I think that really attributes to how poor that draft class was more than anything else. More than a bunch of athletes than pure football players, and Smith was less of an athlete and more of a football player. So he was the only football player among athletes, and that just goes to show if you're a football player, more likely than not you're going to stick, which brings me back to Alice, who is a football player. So, I mean, I think he's going to stick. Where he goes, now that is what you need to think and what the strategy is behind it. So, I mean, it all comes back to that situation. So, it all goes full circle.
Exactly, it does. It all goes full circle. And really, this 29 draft, basically, Matthew Stafford and Andre Smith are the only top 8 picks still playing in the NFL. Crabtree's the 3rd player in the top 10 still playing in the NFL. Then you got guys like Arakpo, Jenkins, Cushing. Those guys, well, Cushing's a free agent, but the point is there was a limited sample size of players in that class, and there were a lot of reaches, and it wasn't a very strong class looking back on things in retrospect.
That being said, guys, I've got to head out and get ready for work.
We are going to end the Google Hangout now. We'll still be on TalkShoe for a few more minutes, but we are going to end the Google